Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's DinaKalmeta here. And today I decided to bring you guys a show. Normally I don't do shows on Sundays, but these headlines are pretty important. So I decided to bring it to you in advance. And speaking of which, beginning a week from tomorrow, we're going to have a new schedule. Shows will be released on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I'm shooting for 5 days a week, you guys, but I don't want to overpromise you. So expect to see me more, but shows will definitely be on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So tune into the channel during those days and be happily surprised when I show up on Tuesday and Thursday. I'm kind of going to go with what the news is. So we're primarily Bible prophecy, but if there's something else in the headlines that affects our nation, I will be reporting on that, however controversial it may be. Of course, we've been censored here, so the expansion of shows will be on Rumble. YouTube has stated, or Google, I should say, that they are lifting certain censorships and bans. So hopefully we'll be able to talk more here on YouTube about certain topics. But as always, I have my Rumble channel, and I'll let you guys know when a show is going to be expanded. But let's get into the news, because there are a lot of serious headlines that we need to cover. I want to talk about this piece from Michael Schneider of The Most Important News. He addresses some concerns with recent events with our U.S. military. And he asks the question, what is the real reason? Why have hundreds of generals and admirals suddenly been summoned for a mysterious meeting in Virginia? And that will be happening this week. But what is the purpose of it? It's a huge mystery, right? It has sparked a frenzy of speculation on social media, but we still haven't been given some real answers. Hopefully, we will get an explanation soon because things are starting to really get weird. First, the Department of Defense was renamed the Department of War, and then President Trump boldly declared that Ukraine can win the war against Russia and take back all of the territory that the Russians have conquered. Of course, that wouldn't be possible unless NATO forces got directly involved. So, are we going to war soon? There are some that believe that this is a real reason why this mysterious gathering of generals and admirals have been scheduled for this week. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered hundreds of the nation's top military officers to assemble at a Marine base in Northern Virginia this week for an unscheduled meeting, an unusual move that has raised questions inside the Pentagon. The gathering, set for Tuesday at Quantico, will bring together generals and admirals of one-star rank or higher, along with senior advisors, according to two people familiar with the matter who spoke to the Associated Press. The directive did not include a reason for the meeting. The people have described the move as extraordinary, were not authorized to speak publicly, and requested anonymity. Quantico is a quite secure base. Michael says, but I think it is quite foolish to gather all of our military brass in a single location. Our enemies know exactly where they're going to be, and so it does cause concern. Now, according to CBS News, all we are being told is that the defense secretary will be addressing his senior military leaders. Isn't this something that could be handled over a video call? If I was a senior military official, that is exactly what I would be thinking. Either he is wasting everyone's time, or this is something really big. Now, a war with Russia would certainly qualify as something really big. On Thursday, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, publicly stated that he believes that NATO is already at war with Russia. He said that the European Union and NATO are using Ukraine as a proxy and are directly participating in the conflict. Now, I've said this before, too, on this show in past broadcasts. Lavrov's comments follow repeated Kremlin claims that Western military and financial support for Ukraine amounts to direct hostility towards Russia. The announcement also comes amid repeated drone incursions into NATO allies' airspace. NATO warned Russia on Tuesday last week that it was prepared to defend every inch of Allied territory after Estonia and that Russian fighter jets had violated its airspace. The incursion followed a similar incident in Poland earlier this month, and I reported on all of this. Denmark reported multiple drone incidents at critical infrastructure points, as a Russian landing ship was discovered lurking off the Danish coast. Unless the Russians actually want to start something, they need to keep their aircraft out of NATO airspace. A single incident could potentially change everything. But the Russians just won't stop. In fact, two 95 long-range strategic bombers and the two Su-35 fighter jets just flew through the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone last week. NORAD responded on Wednesday by sending an E-3 early warning and control aircraft along with 4 F-16s and 4 KC-135 tanker planes to positively identify and intercept the Russian aircraft. So what in the world are the Russians thinking? If they keep pulling such stunts, it is just a matter of time before one of their aircraft gets shot down. In fact, Ursula von der Leyen just warned that shooting down Russian aircraft is very much on the table. Now, she is the president of the European Commission, just so we know who she is. She went on to say that my opinion is we have to defend every square centimeter of the territory. That means if there is an intrusion in the airspace after warning, after being very clear, of course, the option of shooting down a fighter jet that's intruding our airspace is on the table. But does she understand what would transpire if that actually happened? According to Russia's ambassador to France, if a Russian aircraft gets shot down, there would be war. As of right now, we are closer to war with Russia than we have ever been. The Ukrainian President Zelensky has suggested that the Russians will soon need to know where their bomb shelters are. Now, that isn't really a good thing to say to the Russians, but then again, they have been hit over and over again. He also went on to say they need it. If they will not stop the war, they will need it in any case. Michael goes on to say that, of course, it is also possible that the mysterious gathering of U.S. military officials at Quantico this week could have to do with the situation in the Middle East. Instead of backing down, Iran is rapidly rebuilding their nuclear facilities. And if something causes war with Iran to suddenly erupt again, that's going to tell us a lot. Another theory that is being floated to explain why so many military officials are being summoned to Virginia is that the Trump administration is planning a nationwide crackdown on political violence. And we all know what that looks like due to current events. Will we soon see troops on the streets of major cities all over the country? If so, how will the left respond? Lastly, there are some on social media that are suggesting that the mysterious meeting that is being held has to do with one of the extremely large comets that are now traveling through our solar system. 3I Atlas is not supposed to come anywhere near us, and we are only supposed to go through the orbitable debris trail. So at this moment, it does not appear that either of them is significantly a threat to us. But maybe we aren't being told everything. And I love what he says next, because I always say this. Only time will tell. Whatever this secret meeting is about, I just wish that they would invite me, he says. I would love to talk to them about what is really coming. So there could be many reasons why the military are all meeting this week. And I heard Trump's response when he was questioned about this in the White House last week. And he's like, it's basically, I'm paraphrasing, it's not a big deal. Why wouldn't he have a meeting with his top people? He kind of brushed it off. But to me, I think that there's a little bit more to the story. It could definitely be a war with Russia. That could definitely be on the table. And it can also be the political violence that we have been seeing here in the U.S. as of recently. I know that here in Portland, the president has requested of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and others. I obviously can't say that word here on YouTube yet. I am also authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, this is not going to go over too well with Portland because we know that this city has had some issues in the past. So I'm just watching the news to see what will happen in the future, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated. Now, let's go back to what the U.S. military is doing. The Daily Mail is reporting that the U.S. is planning military strikes in Venezuela against certain drug cartels in the coming weeks. President Trump is yet to approve the actions, which are in response to President Nicolas Maduro, whom the U.S. sees as illegitimate, not doing enough to stop the illegal activities from getting out of Venezuela. It would largely consist of drone strikes against leaders and members of gangs, as well as certain labs. So we are going to see some activity as far as that is concerned in Venezuela, possibly. Now, here's a report from Prophecy Recon, but this has been reported across several other sources in the last week. The report goes on to say U.S. President Donald Trump declared Thursday that he would not permit Israel to annex Judea and Samaria, firmly rejecting calls from certain Israeli leaders to extend sovereignty over the land. Trump's comments came as the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in New York for the UN General Assembly, which took place last week, where global leaders, including Arab and other officials, expressed alarm over the prospect of the annexation. He said, President Trump, I will not allow Israel to annex Judea and Samaria. Nope, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen. There's been enough. It's time to stop now. His remarks drew praise from Arab leaders who claim annexation would ignite regional turmoil, even as Israel maintains that Judea and Samaria are a part of its ancestral homeland, dating back thousands of years, and that is true. So here's where I disagree with the president. That is Israel's land. That is what God gave Israel. Actually, it's God's land. So I have to disagree with him. This is biblically dangerous for the president to put his 2 cents in here as far as not allowing it. It's not for him to say what is allowed in Israel, especially when it concerns to this particular land. And the Bible is very clear about that, and we'll review that again. But in a striking parallel, 2 tropical systems is in the Atlantic right now. They're spinning towards a possible rare Fujiwara effect, where storms collide and intensify. Bill Koenig has long documented how major natural disasters often coincide with world leaders pressuring Israel to divide its land. Could this be another warning? As nations gather at the UN, talk of a 2-state solution, push back against Israel's right to Judea and Samaria, nature itself seems to be stirring. The timing raises a sobering question. Are we watching prophecy unfold in real time, with storms in the heavens reflecting the storm against God's covenant people on earth? And I would definitely say yes. And I am actually reading a book right now from John P. McTernan, and I want to say thank you to Pastor Chris for sending that to me. It's very eye-opening, but it lists all the times that the United States, so far, I just started it, but it lists all the times that the United States has gone out of their boundaries with Israel, and bad things have happened in the form of natural disasters and other forms as well, I want to add. But this is definitely a biblical situation, because we know in Zechariah chapter 12, verse 3, on that day when all nations of the earth are gathered against her. Who is her? That's Israel. I will make Jerusalem immovable rock for all nations. All who try to move it will injure themselves. In other words, judgment will come upon them. Could that be what we're seeing with these storms out in the ocean? Okay, so that's the NIV. And in that day, I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. A little bit more graphic. Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. Now, President Trump isn't against Israel, obviously, but he's making decisions that are not his to make, not when it comes to the land of Israel. And again, we know in Joel chapter 3, verse 2, God says, I will gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Josaphat, and will plead with them for my people, which is Israel, and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and parted my land. Judea and Samaria are ancestrally Israel's. So, could this be parting of the land? Also, this could refer to the 2-state solution. Either way, not a good thing for the United States to put their hands in. Moving along to this other piece from Prophecy News Watch. Those of you that follow Bible prophecy have probably already seen this, but just in case, let's talk about it. The headline reads, Mandatory Digital ID is here. UK is first domino to fall in new digital order. So the writer goes on to say, imagine walking into a grocery store, a bank, or even your doctor's office and being told, access denied. Digital ID not verified. The lights flash red. A clerk shakes their head. Suddenly your life is on hold. No money, no rent, no appointments. A small app or card has become the master key to your entire existence. This isn't fiction. It is the path that the UK is racing towards. Just last year, the Labour government promised citizens there would be no return of national identity cards. The idea was politically radioactive, a symbol of Big Brother surveillance, of a state watching every citizen. Yet now, the government is preparing to announce digital ID mandatory for all adults, transforming a once unthinkable intrusion into an impending reality. Until recently, ministers insisted digital identity schemes were off the table, even after lobbying from senior figures. Labour publicly rejected any of that plan. Today, however, the BRIC card is being promoted as a solution for immigration enforcement, border control, and broader social administration. Such a rapid shift should set off alarm bells for those that know the book of Revelation. But why now? The timing is telling. Amid record small boat crossings, asylum backlogs, and mounting public anxiety, the government seeks a dramatic fix. Every adult would hold a digital ID, required to rent, work, or access essential services, forcing compliance into every corner of life. Officials have studied Estonia's model, where citizens receive a digital identity at birth, used across banking, voting, healthcare, and taxation. But the UK's system could go far beyond, linking immigration, welfare, banking, housing, healthcare, and commerce into a single centralized framework. What starts as convenience or security hides a far darker reality. A compulsory digital ID centralizes unprecedented power over every citizen. Surveillance and control. Imagine a government with a live map of your daily life. Every purchase, every medical appointment, every online comment. Linking all activity to a single ID creates the blueprint for a surveillance society. History shows that such powers, once granted, are rarely returned. From East Germany to modern social credit systems, even those in China, I want to add. It's an exclusion and coercion. A digital ID is not just identification, it is a gatekeeper. Could a bureaucratic error, algorithmic bias, or political whim prevent you from working, renting, or buying groceries? Society itself becomes contingent on state approval. It's a mission creep. Digital IDs rarely remain limited to their original purpose. Welfare, healthcare, taxation, voting, even private commerce can all become linked. Each integration expands state leverage, inching toward total control. Now imagine pairing this system with government-issued digital currency. Every transaction could be monitored, restricted, or frozen in real time. Economic freedom disappears. Your ability to buy, sell, or work depends entirely on government consent. Society becomes dependent, traceable, and controllable at the keystroke of the state. So for those who read scripture, the warnings are stark. Revelation 13 describes a time, and I have brought you guys this verse over and over, but there's always new subscribers that have never heard this before. But Revelation 13 describes a time when no one can buy or sell without the mark, a digital seal of allegiance. Mandatory digital IDs, especially when paired with digital currency, echo this chilling vision. What begins as a logical fix for other things could rapidly evolve into total societal control. Consider also Daniel's prophecies, which speak of kingdoms that consolidate power, demand allegiance, and suppress dissent. A system that requires every citizen to register digitally, linking identity, finances, and access to resources mirrors this vision of centralized authority. It is not hard to imagine a world where compliance becomes mandatory, and those who resist are systematically excluded from the economy and society. These prophetic parallels remind us that the forces of control are often gradual, cloaked in the language of convenience, efficiency, or safety. Yet their ultimate purpose is absolute oversight. Europe will watch the UK closely. So if this experiment succeeds, it will likely spread quietly, normalized under the guise of efficiency, safety, or progress. Once citizens submit, rolling it back becomes nearly impossible. What begins as migration enforcement could become the blueprint for global surveillance, economic dependence, and behavioral control. So for those of you that are not familiar with what is happening here or what is on the cusp of happening in the UK, this is very similar to what Revelation 13 verses 16 through 18 tells us. Two men are going to rise to power. One is going to be a political leader, and the other is going to be a false prophet. The political leader, the Bible calls him the Antichrist. So exactly what it sounds like. He will be Antichrist. But he's going to call himself God. He's going to be a man of peace at first. It'll be a lie. It'll be a false peace. He's going to be the one that's going to confirm a 7-year peace agreement with Israel as well as many other nations. The false prophet is going to encourage people to worship this individual. This individual will be a demonically possessed man. 3.5 years into his reign, he will have an injury to the head. He will pass away, but miraculously come back to life. Sound familiar? The false prophet is going to encourage people to worship this man. People are going to wonder after this man or this beast, as the Bible describes it. But when he comes back to life, he will be indwelt with the devil himself. So it will be the devil in a human body. That's who people are going to be worshiping. Now, I know this sounds controversial for some people who have no idea what the Bible is about in these end days, but this is what is going to happen during the 7-year tribulation after the rapture, before the second coming. And during that time, to get people's allegiance to this particular individual, they're going to demand, and I'll read it to you, Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 18, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man, and his number is 666. So basically, the same thing, sort of what the UK is doing right now. In a digital sense, this will be a mark. So whether it be a tattoo embedded with a chip, nobody really knows, but it will be mandatory in order to buy or sell anything that everybody have this mark. But anyone who does not take this mark, you're going to be considered an outcast of society, and they will literally hunt you down in those days and demand that you take this mark. And if you do not take this mark, they will execute you. Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. And many will be beheaded because of their faith and because they don't want to take this mark. And those that do take the mark, Revelation 14 describes a very sobering existence for them for all of eternity. They will be separated from Jesus forever. They will burn for eternity in the lake of fire. They will have no water. They will have no rest. They will have no food. This is how the Bible describes it. So they are definitely ready to set up this type of system right now. Now, speaking of the Antichrist, Peter Thiel, a tech billionaire, has reportedly claimed that regulating artificial intelligence could actually hasten the rise of the Antichrist. In a lecture delivered in San Francisco that I told you guys was going to happen and organized by the Act 17 Collective, Thiel is said to have warned that fears of existential threats are creating the perfect climate for a global figure to rise, promising peace and safety while using regulation to choke technological progress. The Act 17 Collective, founded by Michelle Stevens, wife of Thiel's business partner, Trey Stevens, seeks to explore the intersection of technology and faith. Although the talks were intended to remain off the record, notes from one attendee leaked online briefly before being deleted. According to the San Francisco Standard, Thiel's remarks centered on the idea that regulation of AI could be weaponized by an antichrist system that exploits global fears to consolidate power, paving the way for a one-world structure that strips away freedom under the guise of safety. Organizers revoked the attendees' tickets, stressing that all sessions were meant to remain private. This is not the first time Thiel has raised concerns about authoritarian systems. He had mentioned certain people that could have these antichrist qualities, but still we have no idea who this man is as of yet because he hasn't been revealed, and the antichrist will not be revealed until after the rapture. But apparently Peter Thiel is on the lookout for this guy. So definitely a very interesting piece. So those are your headlines today. Something to chew on a little bit until my next show this week. But I want to hear from you guys. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think about the headlines that I brought to you. What do you think about all the U.S. military meeting with the defense secretary this week? What do you think about what's happening in the U.K., what's going on in the Middle East? Let me know in the comments. Also, when you have some time, come and visit me on my social media pages, as well as my website at www.cww7news.com. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, God bless and stay safe.